Only Christians can make truth claims. So true. Just started.
Yeah, I'm going to breakfast, so I'll only be on for a couple of minutes.
Sounds good. I was just kind of go over this paper some more. So.
Well, you're going to be tested on Thursday, so you definitely need to be. No, it's a good paper.
The atheist test me on it.
It helped me out to understand to a greater extent how they reason.
Yeah, right here I'm reading saying it's talking about a guy named Flew. I'm not sure who this Flew guy is.
Anthony Flew was a famous.
Oh, that's the guy you cite about all the arguments.
He's a lifelong philosophical champion of atheism. And he wasn't like what you would consider one of the new atheists. He was truly somebody who went to great efforts to philosophically defend atheism rather than just, vitriolic rhetoric. And he's somebody who debated William Lane Craig. Christians came to him later in life and they showed him the intricacies of the DNA code, and they showed him statistically, probabilistically, what would have to take place in order for there to be life. And he realized at that point there's no way that random mutations could have built the genome. So he became a deist several years before he died.
Oh, okay, that's that guy.
Flew was a big name in the philosophical representation and defense of atheism.
It's funny. How he yields to deism. But so yeah, it's saying here in this paper. So he would have the maxim that, like, if it's to be established that X is the case, then we must have good grounds for believing that this is indeed so. And so they take that to God. Well, if it's God is the case, then we have to have good grounds for believing it. But then he's saying here that's just going to follow that's going to apply to the non-God position as well.
Unless they're just smuggling in the not God world without being upfront about it.
He says there would have to be something peculiar about the debate of God that would be different from how we think about anything else. Because in any other situation, we would not just have this presumption of the negative or something, right?
Well, look, it's understandable that they take this line of reasoning because what else have they got? They have nothing.
Yeah.
So Kai Nielsen kind of takes this approach in Reason and Practice.
The name of who, Judy? We were talking about a guy named, is it Anthony Flew? Is that his name?
It's, Anthony.
Anthony Flew.
Anthony Flew. It's a British guy. He actually wrote a book called There Is a God. And in fact, one or more several atheists were so disturbed by his conversion to explicit deism that when he was suffering from what I think is called aphasia, which is trouble remembering and matching names with faces, a New York Times reporter, obviously a biased atheist, tried to accuse that Flew converted because he was suffering from the onset of senility or some type of dementia, which was not the case.
That was ad hoc rescue. Why when Xerxes converted, it was never because
Yeah, there was no indication of like early onset dementia, or senility, but
Well,
he
like
did
no,
suffer from the onset of and I could be getting this term wrong, aphasia. He had trouble matching names with faces.
they could never admit that if someone converts from atheism to some sort of theism, or even like maybe even a deism, they never like admit that it's due to that what the evidence indicates. They're always gonna come up with some excuse as to like, yeah, like
So early this morning, I had a guy on another stream boldly asserting there's no evidence for God. And so I said, okay, so can you tell me what is the evidence that the world is independent from God? And all of a sudden there was crickets. Just dead silent. He didn't know what to say because they're so accustomed to people going, oh, no, there is evidence. And then they go, nah, right? But when you take this approach, we're not trying to persuade them to adopt an introduction of fresh evidence, and then they're going to go, oh, now I see there's a God. What we're doing is we're trying to show them the bankruptcy of their position.
I tuned into like a clubhouse room real quick before I started my live, and they were reading the God Delusion in this room, and it's like laughable. What this book was saying, they were saying they're talking about, oh well, so having a creator seems like an easy explanation or simple explanation for
That's just a vacuous cliche. Yeah.
Well, it's funny when they try to get profound because they're like, well, you could say there's a creator and that would explain the existence of the universe, but that just rises the question: what created the creator?
Oh my gosh, how stupid can
like
you
that's so
get?
like deep. They act like that's deep philosophy. Like how is this a book? Like what is this?
Yeah, well, you know something? The super genius Neil deGrasse Tyson has raised this issue. Richard Dawkins raised the issue. It's just stupidity.
Yeah, some guy wanted to tell me he was he's like, show me how the fact that we're made of stardust necessitates there a god for that
Get
fact.
right out of there. You're adopting the notion of a completely naturalistic, materialistic descent.
Yeah. Well, he's saying that there's all these natural processes that result in like us.
It may be. Look. They don't even know what they're talking about. What? Hold on a second.
For all those natural processes that God would have to endow the world with order.
When we talk about stellar nucleosynthesis, okay, it's perfectly plausible and acceptable to say that certain of the lightest of elements can be formed through stellar nuclear synthesis. But the higher you go up the periodic table, it becomes monumentally and approaching impossible justifying that the higher elements could be formed, right? And so they're just a certain. You see, if we were to use their approach, you would just simply say, "Well, that's just a myth. That's just a myth. Stellar nucleosynthesis is a myth, right?" They haven't demonstrated that the higher elements can be and are being formed through intense heat and pressure in stars. No, it's ridiculous. All right, I'll stay and listen.
Yeah, we can all be made of stardust, but somehow God can't make a donkey talk. Hey, dysfunctional. So have you repented and become rational?
Nope.
Oh, you're still irrational?
Yeah, sure. If you want to clarify it as irrational.
No, it's not that I'm clarifying it as rational. Can you ground logic in your worldview?
Yeah.
All right. So what in your worldview would be immaterial, universal, and unchanging to ground logic? All right, thanks for coming, man.
Oh, the laws of logic.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man.
You're kicking me?
Well,
Or
I'm
are you
looking to
talking
talk
to
to.
us?
We're looking to talk to rational people. So
Yeah.
that was-
you think you find me irrational?
yes, please. Yeah, we're looking to talk to rational people. So probably like avoid coming back in the future. Thanks for coming though, and I wish you well. Dr. Quantum, have you repented and decided to be rational?
I think I already am rational, but I've not done any repenting.
Well, but you're only rational because you're in the Christian worldview. So I'm saying, like, yeah, you're rational, but your position would make it impossible for you to be rational.
I'm not in the Christian worldview.
Yeah, you live in the Christian.
I don't think that.
Yeah.
I don't think that two of every animal were put onto an ark and then there was a large flood.
It doesn't matter what you think. What can you prove?
Well, that's part of the Christian worldview.
Well, I know. And it doesn't matter what you think, right? Since you can't debunk, you have no proposition to negate the Christian worldview. Therefore, you live in the Christian worldview.
No, I can demonstrate to you that there are things, for example, Noah's Ark, which are verifiably false.
Yeah, so you think Noah's Ark is impossible?
Yes, it contradicts heaps of scientific evidence, that the obvious one being evolution by natural selection.
So what would dictate what's possible and impossible that you could like claim that something's impossible?
Well, the fact that, for example, we know the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, but I believe you think it's 6,000 years old. Your evidence for that is scripture. Sorry?
You are prevaricating.
Well, I'm giving an example. So I have no evidence that God exists. I have no evidence that God doesn't exist. I can't prove either way. What I can say is that certain things in certain religious texts are false.
You can't do that. But you can't do that.
Well, I can.
Okay. To say that like Noah's flood is impossible, there's got to be something in your worldview that would dictate what's impossible or possible, so that there would be context. So when you talk about possibilities, it would have no meaning if there's nothing in your worldview that would dictate possibilities. It's just like thin air. See what I'm saying?
Not massively, but let's think about
goodness. What would it mean?
Skeletons of our ancestors from 250,000 years ago. How would they exist if the Earth was 6,000 years old?
If there's nothing to make something impossible, then how are you talking about something being impossible? There's nothing that's making it impossible. See what I'm saying? It wouldn't make sense to talk about something as impossible if there's nothing that makes it impossible. Like, your opinion doesn't make... If I go, in my opinion, gravity is impossible, I'm going to go jump to the moon. This doesn't work, right? Because something makes gravity possible, and gravity makes it impossible that I jump to the moon.
Yeah, well, gravity exists.
Right. So like that's gravity is going to factor into like what's possible and impossible in terms of like what's physically possible. So what's going to make that? It's like, what makes something possible or impossible so that we can like have gravity, you know? What makes
I
it
don't understand. I mean, gravity exists. I don't care. What do you mean? What do you mean? What makes something impossible or possible? Gravity exists. I think we both agree on that.
nothing like causes gravity to be true, or like cause it. If nothing
No,
causes,
it just is. It's a fact of the universe.
okay. So this is the problem, right? So this is why you got to be a Christian, because what you're saying is just nonsense. You're just speaking nonsense. This is gibberish.
What have I said that's nonsense?
Everything you say is gibberish because there's no metaphysical content to anything. Nothing means anything because you deny God. So clearly there's inherent meaning in the world. You're a freaking physicist. You should obviously see the inherent meaning in the world. You literally, allegedly, Darth doesn't believe it, but you study the inherent meaning in the world.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. Right now, I'm in my lab, right? I'm shooting lasers at some diamond, and I'm collecting light coming out of my diamond. What on earth does that have to do with God?
Like there's identity over time, there's cause and effect, there's uniformity of nature, and all those things. There's meaning in the world, there's order.
So to understand why my diamond is behaving why it is, why do I need God?
Because
I don't. I need theory of condensed matter physics.
it's either that God is imposing that order that you're looking at, or like the human mind is imposing.
Well, neither of us can prove or disprove that. You can say that God created this order. I can say there's no evidence for that. That's fine.
Yeah.
So that's just going to become circular.
How can you talk about evidence? Have you determined that evidence can exist with independence of God?
Yeah. I have lots of evidence for lots of things, and I don't.
How did you?
I have evidence for certain scientific.
How do you explain the uniformity of nature? What's the evidence for that?
See, you always say this, and what Darth does actually. I'm not convinced nature's very uniform.
Constantly bullshit me. Bullshit me. Why do you constantly bullshit me? You're a man
So,
of fucking
what do you mean by the
science.
uniformity of nature?
What do I mean? That the future
Can you expand on that?
is the past. Like when you do a scientific experiment, you can get a repeatable result. Imagine a world where every time you did an experiment, you got a different result. You can't do science in that world. There's no consistency. There's no order. Hello? What not hello?
Yeah, but what is there to say? So you're saying that the laws of physics cannot change?
Can I do science in a world where all experiments have a different result? I can't do science.
So are you claiming that?
It's not like that.
Are you claiming that the laws of physics have always been and will always be the same?
Can you do science in a world where every experiment has a different result? You can't do science in that world.
I'm trying to get to.
Can you?
So
Hello,
I'm trying to. So okay.
Hello.
So.
Hello.
So what I believe you're implying is that the laws of nature have always and will always be the same. Is that what you're implying? Or can the laws of nature change?
I don't know what you're talking, dude. It's real simple. In a world
right.
where every time we do an experiment and we have a different result, science would be impossible. Science requires there to be consistent, repeatable results that have like meaningful data.
So you're obviously trying to frame this in a way that suits you. So you said that the future resembles the present, resembles the past. So are you suggesting that the laws of physics have always been and will always be the same as they are now? Yes or no?
It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Can you please?
Well, no.
Okay.
Because
if you prevaricate anymore, I'm just going to kick you. Okay. Can we do science in the world where every time we do an experiment, there's a different result? Is science possible in that world?
Yes and no. So you need to let me explain.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. What is so what a unique person. What a very unique person. Yeah, sure I did. Welcome, Road Warrior.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well, just talking to scientific liars. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's always fun to listen to that, huh?
Yeah, I love the science lies. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The thing that has that I've come to the conclusion in the years is they try to talk a big game and they come up with all these fancy words and they try to, use mathematics and biology and all this stuff to make themselves sound smart when they're really they have no leg to stand on. None.
Nope. It's really a joke. I usually ask them, they want to accuse religious people of being indoctrinated. Well, that means you're not looking at both sides of a position to be indoctrinated. You just look at the evidence of the position you want to be true. So I asked them, like, okay, well, you believe in science. Do you know any of the, like, criticisms of science? And they're like a deer in headlights. Like, what? There's criticisms of science? Oh! They have no idea. They're completely indoctrinated to this scientific cult. And then it's like the science lab man in his lab coat. It's the new priest class, and you better listen to the man in the white lab coat, or you're gonna go to science hell.
Yeah. That's what they do. They try to use science to disprove God, when in reality, all science does is prove God, and that's the reality.
They're using it. It's because Satan is in control of this world.
Yep.
So they're using science to oppress and persecute people and tell us lies of the devil, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we have to deal with, but everyone's brainwashed into it. So
yeah, there's really you can present evidence all day long to an atheist, and it doesn't matter because they're literally set on trying to stump you, and they don't care. They do not care.
it's true.
God could show up himself and just say, "Hey, look, I'm God. Watch this. I'll even show you." And they'll go, "No, you're not God." That's where they're at. They don't want to believe that God exists because of their sin, and that's the bottom line.
That's true. There's actually a passage in the Bible that echoes what you're saying. What is it? The rich man and Lazarus. Yeah, so there was a rich man who dressed in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. At his gate was laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores and longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs came and licked his sores. The time came when the beggar died, and the angels carried him to Abraham's side. The rich man also died and was buried. In Hades, where he was in torment, he looked up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. So he called to him, "Father Abraham, have pity on me and send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, because I am in agony in this fire."
Mm-hmm.
But Abraham replied, "Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, while Lazarus received bad things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. And besides all this, between us and you a great chasm has been set in place, so that those who want to go from here to you cannot, nor can anyone cross over from here to us." He answered, Then I beg you, Father, send Lazarus to my family, For I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them, so that they will not also come to this place of torment. So he's asking, I think, is it Jesus he's talking to? I can't remember who he's talking to. He's asking God basically to resurrect Lazarus and send Lazarus to his family, his brothers, to let them know that they have to repent or they will end up in a place of torment. Oh, he's talking to Abraham, my bad.
Where the worm never dies.
Yeah, and Abraham says they have Moses, but this is Jesus talking. So Abraham says they have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them. No, Father Abraham, he said, but if someone from the dead goes to them, they will repent. So he's convinced that if someone resurrects, the people will repent upon witnessing the resurrection. But Abraham says, if they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead. There it is right there.
Mhm.
If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead. So they talk about, oh, if this miracle happens right in front of me, I'll believe in Jesus. That they're lying.
Mhm.
They already have they have Moses, the prophets, they have Jesus, they have Abraham, they have everything they need to believe, and they don't want it to be true. It's
Nope.
simply a matter of what they want or don't want to be true. That's it.
Yeah, it's like Jesus said, he's the light of the world. He came in to the world, but men love darkness rather than light, so they don't go to the light, lest their deeds be revealed. That's what it is. They don't want the light to shine on them because they know.
Yeah. So, anyways, man, thanks for coming. Or do you have anything else? A question?
Oh, no. I was just coming in just popping in. No.
Okay, right on, man. All right, man. Have a good day. Mandy Frank. This Mandy Frank person tried to do that thing where they pose as a Christian. Because I don't know, like, do they think posing?
Yeah,
posing
they
as
do that.
is posing as a Christian? Do they think it's going to give them some sort of advantage in the dialect or something?
Well, they're stupid. They think that there aren't going to be Christians out there that are astute enough to know their shtick.
Yeah, and they just kept grilling me about tag and just being completely unreasonable. And it gets to a point where I was like, is this person really a Christian? Why are they being so unreasonable? Because even like a Christian evidentialist isn't like, they're not going to be so militant against the idea of Can you believe? Were you listening to that fake science liar guy? Oh, this guy is
He's annoying. He's a clown.
A clown?
well, this guy's I've talked to this guy too. This guy's ridiculous.
Are y'all just don't like that I can prove that God isn't real and you cannot prove that God is?
Oh, good. Tell me, I'm listening. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So, let's see. How do you want to approach this? Do you want me to show you like God's characteristics that contradict each other, or do you want me to show you like contradicting
look, you're an amateur. I'm about to swat you like a fly. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, laugh. It's about to drop on you. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question.
Wait, do you believe in magic?
Okay, dysfunction. Please be patient. Okay. I'm going to ask you a very simple question, and I'm going to use the question to swat you like a fly, and you're not even going to see it coming. Okay, can God be known?
Can God be known if God purposes not to be known?
What?
Can God be
Are
known?
you asking if like God can God contradict himself?
Are you recovering from the flu? I asked a very clear and simple question. I said,
Recovering
can
from the flu.
God, yeah, see, yeah. Well, I'm just wondering why you're so obtuse with such a simple question. You claim to have solved the most important question of human existence, and yet when I ask you a simple, clear question,
Wait, just ask it again, dude.
Please do not interrupt me without cause, or I'll get very pissed. Okay. Now.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm terribly impatient.
Yeah, you are. So can God be known if God purposes not to be known?
No.
Okay. Are you in an environment where God has revealed himself?
Yeah.
Well, you've now contradicted yourself.
I contradicted myself. All you did was
yeah. How can you be in an environment where God reveals himself when your position is God doesn't exist?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, dude. Before we go on,
what do you mean?
Just
because like I know about Jesus?
Listen to me. If you don't start being a bit more cooperative, and by that I don't mean you agree with me.
Please.
If you're not, I'm about to kick you. I'm a mod here.
Dude,
okay?
You're almost as emotional as Mars. Please stop.
Okay, you're done. All right, we're done.
Okay.
Yeah, we're done. Here's a guy who says he can explain why God doesn't exist, the answer to the single most important question of human existence, but he can't answer even a simple question.
Yeah, I've talked to him a lot. He's just not a serious person. Did you notice that, like, so-called the science guy, though? So I asked him, can we do science in a world where every experiment would get a different result? And he goes, yes and no. And he's going to try and argue that because the laws of physics were different, like during the singularity, that therefore they're not like, there's no uniformity of nature or something like that. Like he is, it doesn't matter. I tried to explain that's completely irrelevant. The fact that there is order at all, there's like order at any level. We're not saying like
we're dealing with people.
What is
it? We're dealing with people that don't even know the basics of the philosophy of science.
Yeah, and I try to explain. I'm like, no, that's irrelevant, and they just keep persisting as if they're making some sort of point. It's like, I know what you're talking about. There would have to be a uniformity to exist for there to be a change in the uniformity. If there's no, how could you have a change without a uniformity or a regularity?
First of all, the singularity is a mythical state.
Yeah, that's another thing too.
It's a mythical state of origin because at best it's a model. It's not a discovery. It's not an observation. It can't be tested.
But if we grant them that, that doesn't debunk the uniformity of nature, which is
no, it doesn't.
It relies on the uniformity of nature to be a theory. Like, what a nincompoop. I don't know. It's just so weird. Like, you're a how could a physicist be an atheist when you're literally looking at what God does? You're literally looking at God's design all the time. If that's like your job. So daily, you're staring at the mind of God and then denying God. Like, how do you do this? Like, you're literally closely examining the mind of God and the order that He endowed into creation as your job, and you're going to deny God. It's just so goofy. It's like imagine being a poet but denying beauty or something like that. I'm gonna paint this picture, but beauty doesn't exist. But I'm painting a picture. So weird.
Doug is asking, why did the host keep interrupting you in the other live? Because he's an impulsive teenager. Okay, and he doesn't know what he's talking about. And in spite of the fact that he is on the theist side, he suffers from the same kind of hubris that atheists do. Okay, he referred emphatically to the virgin birth as the Immaculate Conception. Okay.
I just talked to Dr. Quantum Doug.
Doctor who?
He calls himself Dr. Quantum.
Yeah, look, if he truly has a PhD in physics, which I don't believe, then he's one of the most inept people. I believe genuinely that he's absolutely lying. Okay, because you can tell when you're talking with people with PhDs. Okay?
I don't understand how could a science, when I ask the question, in a world where all the scientific experiments have different results, is science possible? He says yes and no.
Who said that?
That Dr. Quantum guy. That was his
okay.
It's like so pathetic.
He's not. Look, he's not. He doesn't have a PhD in physics.
Like clearly, science relies on repeatable results. If you can't have repeatable results, there's no science. Like this is not controversial. He's talking about being good Lord. He's literally doing experiments that rely on the uniformity of nature. Well, saying like, well, we don't need the uniformity of nature to do science.
He's just lying when he has a PhD.
Well, if he does have a PhD, he should ask for his money back.
So, Doug Warner, the problem with the host is that he's young, he's naive, he's uneducated, and he's undisciplined. Okay, he first of all, you don't have that many people in a room. You don't have that many people in the room unless you have it under state order. And he's constantly, because of his youth and inexperience, allowing it to turn into a cluster fluster. Okay? So, and then he has a hissy fit when I point out that he's not competently moderating the room, and then he turns on me, which is not unusual. Praise I Am did that on the YouTube channel. When they don't competently moderate their sessions, they take out their anger when somebody confronts them with the fact that they're not reining people in from chaotic utterances. That's why you will not see on my stream or even on PMR streams where there's multiple people in the room and it turns into a cacophony of conflicting voices.
Yeah, I can't. It's there's no way we can have
There are times when I will have 2 or 3 people stacked up in here, but you will notice that they're not allowed to speak or interject unless they're given strict permission to do so, and they have to wait their turn. So that's the problem with that other host, Mr. Theologian Lilly. Look, he just doesn't know what he's talking about on a whole host of subjects. That's the problem with people.
You and on his
they're suffering from what is called the who was the Secretary of Defense under Bush? Was it Donald Rumsfeld? Donald Rumsfeld says there are things we know and things we don't know.
Yeah,
and there are things that we know that we don't know, but then there are things we don't know that we don't know. Okay. Now, people laughed at that statement, but it was actually a very spot on thing. So a lot of times, because they have an overly inflated opinion of their understanding of certain subjects, they don't know what they don't know, right? And then when they meet somebody who's a bit more educated on the subject matter, they're stricken by pride. They just don't want to humble themselves to acknowledge that somebody knows more than they do. Mr. Pika, welcome. Do you accept God as your creator? Are you there, Mr. Pika? If you don't speak, we're going to have to remove you. Yeah. Do you accept God as your creator?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Are you a Christian?
Yes.
What would you like to say, Mr. Pika?
I had a question.
Sure.
I guess it falls into the science. So what's your take on the whole flat Earth thing? Do you believe the Earth is a globe or is it just a flat surface?
The overwhelming majority of flat earthers are trolls. Okay.
Well, I was looking for like a biblical perspective.
Yeah, well, Isaiah talks about the circularity of the earth. It talks about the circle of the earth. Okay. So the ancient Greeks knew that the earth was spherical simply by measuring the length and angles of shadows in different locations. Okay.
When it comes
so listen carefully. Okay. There's a book out there written by a scholar. I forget what his name is, but the title of the book, is called "The Myth of the Flat Earth." There never was widespread belief in a flat Earth. That's a myth. Could there have been certain small pockets here and there where somebody might believe in a flat Earth? Sure, but
yeah, that's true.
This is especially in the Middle Ages. This myth was propagated in the late 19th century into the early beginning of the 20th century. I forget the gentleman's name, but he decided to adopt Charles Darwin's theory of evolution and go on the ideological warpath against Christians and creationists by saying that they were akin to flat earthers, right? Well, the fact of the matter is there never was widespread belief of a flat earth during the Middle Ages, nor during human history.
People to think that the ancients were all silly fuddy-duddies and that we're like all modern and sophisticated with our technology and science. Not always like that, really.
Because at this moment, the idea or like the overwhelming majority believe that early Christianity had this idea that the Earth is flat, and so that's what
it's completely historically fallacious.
Okay.
There's no look. People who say that the Bible teaches that the Earth is flat. Yeah, can you hear me? Okay, I'm trying to answer you. There are people out there. There are people out there like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Aaron Rahman Batguana Crazy Ra, who say that the Bible clearly teaches that the Earth is flat. Okay, I mean, they're flat out lying.
Hey, Darth, we can hear you clear, but there's times where you sound muffled, like maybe you're covering your mic or something.
And I have an extended
is that better now?
question.
Well, you sound mostly clear. It's just like once in a while it sounds muffled. So
let me switch my headset. Okay.
And an extended question to the same idea here. Like when it comes to the Catholic Church or the Orthodox Eastern churches, like what do they say on the matter? Like, do they have an authoritative final indication of what they think about it?
The Catholic Church, I don't think, advocates or accepts that the Earth is flat.
Mm.
Okay, but they do acquiesce to the idea of modern materialism that the Earth is eons old. They're capitulating because something is held in consensus, therefore it must be true.
Okay.
Most people don't really understand of how the idea of an old Earth, how it originated historically, and how it developed into the 20th century. They think, oh, well, they test rocks and, based upon calculating the half-life decay of elements, and they don't understand that the process and the conclusion are based upon circular reasoning. Okay? You have to presuppose that any rock that you're examining is as old, if not older, than the putative parent element that allegedly decays into the daughter isotope. That's not something that can be established. Okay?
Yeah. And one final question, because I wanted clarity on this part of it. It seems that a lot of the flat Earth ideas that get associated with Christianity comes from the passages where it says that there's a firmament. Can you explain in your
the Bible,
understanding what the
is,
firmament is
the Bible,
and what it's not?
Well, the Bible in certain translation refers to it as the expanse. Okay, so it's not crystal clear as to what it was. Okay, it could be referring to some aspect of the atmosphere. It could have hypothetically been referring to that there could be some form of vapor or water canopy encapsulating the earth, although Christians will disagree about that respectfully. But what the certain rabid, foaming at the mouth critics of the Bible will say, oh, they're saying it's a solid dome. Well, no, nobody's saying it's, theologians are not saying that it is a solid dome, right?
Right, they make that interpretation that Christians believe it's
because they're not careful. Look, they're not. Look,
that
they're not careful. They're not careful about their attacks. They're grotesquely sloppy. Like, for example, when it says in the book of Revelation, it says the stars will fall. Okay, Neil deGrasse Tyson accuses the book of Revelation as being being unscientific. So the book of Revelation is apocalyptic literature and is largely symbolic. And when it says the stars will fall, you have to look in the Greek to see what does the Greek mean, because there's greater richness in the Hebrew and in the Greek than there is in English. Okay, and by the way, and when it says stars will fall, biblically, stars was any object that emitted light. Okay, as from our perspective. So you could have a situation where, and I'm not saying this is necessarily the case, that it's talking about in the very end days, right, before Christ returns, is that you could have a situation where stellar objects, such as meteors, that there could be a global meteor shower, and they start falling and re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. And from the human perspective, they would refer to them as stars. Stars refers to any object that emits light. So when the ancients in the Old Testament refers to certain things that were stars, they were simply referring to not only what we understand now to be suns, okay? They were referring to planets that reflect the light of the sun as well. So the point I'm trying to make is that people who criticize the Bible, they're extremely incompetent and misrepresent what the Bible is saying.
Okay, and I had a question about the firmament portion of it. When they say there's many that conclude that the firmament is a solid, And so I'm saying, let's assume that it's not a solid. But then they'll say, okay, well, maybe it's like a liquid, but it's impassable, that you cannot get through it. What's
Where
your
does it say
opinion
that
on
in the
that?
Bible? It
Can
doesn't
we,
say that.
well,
Look, this
they
is look
infer that.
when they try to say that this was a solid dome, right? This is an act of desperation on their part in order to piss on the Bible, okay? Because the Bible is not clear about what the nature of the firmament or expanse was. Okay,
And so,
so there's a reason why certain translations translated as expanse. It could be referring to the atmosphere, which the water is above. Okay, all right. And as far as we know, there could be who knows who knows what the nature of water is in outer space. We just simply don't know. The point is that when people attack the Bible, they're usually either taking it out of context or they're reading into it something that's not there.
and sir, what's your opinion on whether we can, with the use of rocketry or other technologies, can we pierce through that, or can we get beyond what would be the firmament?
I already explained to you it's not clear in the biblical text what the firmament or expanse was.
Okay, but then in
Look,
that case, do
there
you
are
think
there
we
are
can
some
get?
creationists. Listen, there are some creationists in years gone by who theorized that before the flood, the earth was surrounded by a canopy of crystalline water. Okay, which would allow the passage of light to come through, but also block a certain amount of a certain type of radiation, and that in the flood, God removed that. Okay, I'm not saying that that's the case. The bottom line is when people tell you what the
Okay,
firmament or the expanse is, they're reading into it something that they cannot clearly show from the text.
okay. And since we don't know what it exactly is, in your opinion, as just your ideas, do you believe we can get beyond to like
Look, it just
Mars?
simply there's a good reason why modern translation refer to it as the expanse.
Pikachu, do you affirm the sphere Earth?
Or what I'm asking is,
Pikachu,
Answer his question.
Pikachu.
Are you a flat earther?
no.
Do you
I'm trying to
affirm?
find out what
Hold on.
information about it.
Thank you for coming up. Life Tech, welcome. Do you accept God as your creator? Your mic went out.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, are you a Christian?
Yeah.
What would you like to say?
I'd actually like ask y'all a question about like going into biblical study. So I'm kind of just like trying to figure out, like, I've heard words off of TikTok that I've never even heard before, like Ilioque, different people, like different councils that said, yeah, this part of the Bible is good. Like, let's keep that. Oh no, let's get rid of that. That's heretical. So,
well, you're picking up on vocabulary from people who are advocates of Eastern Orthodoxy.
Gotcha. So, I guess orthodoxy. So, as someone who doesn't know anything about like church history, would you say like I need to Google like what orthodoxy is and then research like about?
I've got a very simple answer for you. Okay, go onto Google and type in the title "Is Eastern Orthodoxy Christian?" by Dr. Morey. Okay, the late Dr. Robert Morey. It's a very easy to read book, but it's very thorough in its introductory nature about what Eastern Orthodoxy teaches. It's called Eastern Orthodoxy Christian. Now, if you want a more in-depth analysis of Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism, then I would strongly recommend you get a book that just came out a few years ago called High Church Heresy.
High Church Heresy.
High Church Heresy. Okay. Now, I'm not in front of my computer right now, but sometime later on, if you come onto my stream or again on here, I can give you the title of other books that go over Eastern Orthodoxy as well. But those are good. Those are good starters. Okay.
Okay, gotcha. So that'll kind of like lead the path of like.
Well, Eastern Orthodoxy, along with Catholicism, is a historical development over the centuries, and they had to develop these extra biblical teachings or traditions, without which they couldn't demand or foist their teachings about a works gospel, without using the club of allegedly apostolic succession. Right? This is typically what cults do. Cults are usually groups that claim to exclusively represent Jesus Christ here on earth, and that they have an extra biblical source of authority, and they deny one or more of the fundamental doctrines of the faith. Well, Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism deny salvation by grace through faith alone, apart from works or performance.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Welcome right here. Do you accept God as your creator?
I'm an atheist.
Can you tell me why?
Yeah, I just haven't been convinced that any God is true. I had a question about
what convinced you that the not God world is true?
Something like, I don't know, the property set that a God would have, and like my expected world that God would actualize being incongruent.
That's a performative contradiction, what you just said, and here's why. Okay, in order to make that statement, you have to have background information. So I'm going to ask you a very simple question. It's not a trick question. Can God be known if God decides or purposes not to be known?
I would say no.
Okay. Are you in such an environment where God has made himself known?
I would also say no.
Okay, then you're not in a position to say what is or is not compatible with God, because God would be entirely unknown to you. So you're not in a position to say what is or is incompatible with God's nature.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. My questions were about the prompts that were on here before.
So now you no longer have a basis for your atheism.
Okay, that's fine.
Good. Do you have any other rational grounds that God does not exist?
Well, no, but my question was about God being the only possible one, and then science and the Bible.
Hold on a second. We'll get to that in a second. So do you now accept that God is and that he's revealed himself in creation?
No, but that would just to align with what your question was earlier.
What is your rational defense that there is no God?
Yeah, the revelation through like how the world is built. I wasn't created with
revelation. Okay, in order to have revelation, you have to have one intentional state communicating to another. What's the first intentional state?
The fact that there is like an external.
No, you're not getting it. Okay. Does the moon engage in communication with you?
No.
Okay. Well, then if the world around you is not intentional, then you can't talk about revelation.
I was saying revelation from maybe your point of view, where
revelation
I should be able to
revelation
from that
dude, are you even listening to me? You can't talk about revelation.
I'm trying.
When the ground of all being is not characteristically okay. Do you want to get kicked? He doesn't. He's making numerous mistakes, and I'm trying to correct him, and he's not stopping.
Let him finish the single sentence.
Okay, timeless. Listen, I have sneakers older than you. I am much more educated on the subject.
I'm actually older than most of your shoes.
How old are you?
I'm 33 years old with a master's degree from Texas Christian University.
If you're 33 years old, you need to stop responding to me like you're an aggressive teenager. Please wait your turn. Okay.
Let him speak then.
Yeah. And how old do you think I am, big man?
The way you act, 12.
Okay, I'm about to kick you. If you don't apologize for your false accusation, I'm going to kick you off the stage.
Go ahead and kick me. Let him finish his sentence.
Goodbye,
Let him finish his
33-year-old
sentence.
boy. Yeah, 33 years old going on 16. Isn't it amazing, Precept Mars, how so many of these what sound to be like 18-year-olds claim that they're in their 30s or 40s? They must be incredibly short stature.
I just think that's it's like this phenomena with like Marvel movies and Star Wars, and it's like perpetual childhood. That's what we have now.
Yeah. So I was just trying to use Revelation in a way that I think that
I'm trying. You're asking me questions. I'm trying to explain something to you, and you just keep on going on and on and on. All right. You cannot invoke revelation unless you have one intentional state communicating with another intentional state. There's no revelation.
Okay. I mean that makes sense.
Let me give you an example. Suppose there is a paper manufacturing company, and it's spitting out pages of paper, and there's an accident with one of their pipelines, and it starts spurting little spots of ink onto the paper. And then after it's all done and over, the paper is collected with all the pigment on the paper. Do the spots on the paper represent revelation?
No, because there was an unintentional state that allowed them to be there.
Right. That's right. So you can't talk about revelation when you don't have one intentional state communicating to another.
Oh, I thought that you were implying that nature was an intentional state.
No, I'm saying that God has constructed the world in such a way as it to be communicative and revelatory of himself.
Right. So would that what about what I said isn't the same as that? Nature is an intentional state.
No, nature is not an intentional state, sir. If you're talking about naturalism, are you talking about the framework of creationism or naturalism?
Creationism.
Okay.
Nature would be an intentional state, right?
No. Nature would be a way that God employs revelation. It
intentionally?
Would be are you going to listen? I'm trying to explain to you, okay?
Right.
That an intentional state refers to the entity in question, that it characteristically is an agent and has intentions, okay? So that we use a non-agent state of affairs to communicate something from one intentional state to another, the means by which is communicated itself is not an intentional state.
Okay.
Do you know what smoke signals are when Indians would send smoke signals to each other?
It's like a way of communication?
Right. So smoke signals aren't characteristically an intentional state. They are the product of an intentional state, namely certain Indians that are trying to communicate to another. But the smoke itself is not an intentional state.
Okay, yeah. Can I ask you a question to make sure I understand?
Yep.
Okay, so you're saying something along the lines of, and correct me, I don't want to misinterpret, God intended to create the state of affairs. However, the consequences and the present results are just stemming from that original intention and aren't themselves intentional states.
You're not in a position to make such a statement. You've already conceded.
No, I'm asking you.
Well, God has created the world that we're in to be a part of and to facilitate his overall plan of creation and redemptive history. And we're in the midst of that right now.
Did I understand what you were saying by that? Or did I get it wrong?
Not the way that you expressed it. So I gave you an answer that the world around. Are you recovering from the flu? I mean, I think I'm speaking in plain English to you. Good, I'm speaking in plain English to you.
Yeah, okay. No, that's fine. By the way,
you're an atheist, right?
Yeah.
Okay, is your atheism right now rational?
Yeah, I would say so.
Good. What's the rational basis that there is no God?
That I believe what I have most reasons to believe, and the conclusion of my belief system is that I'm not yet convinced that God is true.
Okay, that's a non sequitur. It doesn't logically and necessarily follow because you have a particular mental state, therefore God doesn't exist. That's a non sequitur.
But my mental state would explain what I'm convinced of, right?
How old are you?
29.
Okay, well, this is sad because I thought you were going to say like you were 16 or 17, right? So I'm trying to, I explained to you why what you said is a non sequitur, and you basically ignored what I've said to you the way children do, okay?
Oh, no, I wasn't trying to ignore
listen
it.
to me. Okay, let me ask you, look, I'm trying to explain to you.
Yeah.
Telling me that God does not exist because you're unconvinced is a logical non sequitur. Do you understand?
I understand that if I was saying that, yes, but I'm just saying that I don't believe that God exists.
That is okay. But now what you're attempting to do is you're doing the typical shape shifting. You're going from the denial of God to, oh, I have a lack of belief in God. And this is a tactic that people pull all the time when they have no recourse to a cogent defeater for God. So you're shape shifting from the proposition that there is no God to I have no positive acceptance of God. So the proposition that there is no God is not the same proposition as I have no mental acceptance of God. Mental acceptance of God. Okay? So what you've done is when I ask you to explain to me the truth of the proposition that there is no God, what you've just expressed is just simply saying, oh, I don't have a positive belief in God. You not having a positive belief in God or being convinced, that doesn't entail the proposition that God does not exist. So I'm waiting for you to explain to me why there's no God.
Well, if you said I switched from saying there is no God to saying I'm unconvinced, I would say that you're correct, and I should have just said that I'm not convinced the whole time.
Okay, well, you can play that game, and that's typically what you're doing is the game that most atheists play, that you're pulling the incredulity card. But I can show you that implicitly and indirectly you deny God. So do you accept and assert that it is true of the necessity of God? Do you accept and assert the necessity of God?
No, and that's what my question was going to be.
Okay, so stop. Okay, so you are refusing to accept the reality of the necessity of God. And such a mindset is an implicit and an indirect de facto denial of God, and there's no way for you to circumvent this. So your position actually entails the denial of God, although you're verbally identifying that you're not denying God, but in fact you are denying God. So are we clear?
Yeah, if by that you mean that me not accepting God.
Are we clear that your position upon examination necessarily entails the denial of God, although you're self-identifying as not denying God when in fact you are denying God?
I agree that it's going to be a true dichotomy that I...
Sir, are we clear that you can no longer... Listen to me. Your laminated incredulity card is null and void. It expired a long time ago. So you can no longer pull the incredulity card. You see, you guys are like clockwork. You start off denying the existence of God. Then when I question you on the grounds that there is no God, you fail miserably. And then when you fail miserably, you go, I was struck with amnesia, but now it comes all back to me. I'm not denying God. I'm just unconvinced. You guys are like clockwork. Do you know how many times I've heard this song and dance? But I just showed you through a logical analysis that your refusal, for whatever reason, to accept the necessity of God constitutes the denial of God. And that's not something that you're going to be able to defeat. So your position actually entails the denial of God in spite of your self-identifying labels.
Okay.
So I want you to explain to me why there's no God.
Yep. Okay. I mean, that's fine. If you want me to take this, so If the Christian God wanted to reveal
We're
himself to
not
me,
talking about, sir, right now, we're not talking about my model of reality. We're talking about your model of reality. Your model of reality is there is no creator. I
okay,
want you to explain to me why there's no creator.
because I think that the universe is past eternal, and I don't think there are any contradictions that arise because of that.
Oh, okay. So here's the problem. So believing something makes it true?
No.
Okay, so all you just simply told me is that you believe that the universe is past eternal. How is that true?
Yeah, but I'm justified in believing that because it's logically possible, and I have no good
Okay,
defeaters.
sir, listen to me. The fact that there isn't a defeater. Okay, do you know what a performative contradiction is?
It's something that's contradictory by action or something.
Yes.
Is that right?
A performative contradiction is the assertion of a proposition or a statement that is in some way self-referential, either by its internal content or that the background information needed to instantiate the proposition is not accessible. So your position that the universe is past eternal is a performative contradiction because you don't have background information to ground that that's the case. And telling me that there's no... what's your background information to assert that anything's eternal?
My background information would be that everything that's ever happened to me and anyone that I know had an antecedent condition.
That's begging the question.
Okay, how?
That's an inductive fallacy.
Okay, how?
Do you know what begging the question and an inductive fallacy is?
I know what begging the question is.
Well, what you're saying is because myself and others have experienced past consistencies, therefore it continues infinitely from the past. That doesn't logically follow. That's begging the question. That's like saying I traveled the world and went to every country, and every swan that I saw was white. Therefore, all swans are white. Is that a valid form of reasoning?
No, it's a black swan fallacy.
Good,
but the
right.
difference,
and you're committing the same fallacy. So,
I would say I'm not, but I can explain.
Dude, if you're fucking 29, act like a 29-year-old, not a motor mouth impulsive teenager. Okay? Now, fast talking and over talking to me without cause makes you look silly. Now, you haven't. Okay, I'm going to ask you a very simple question. If the universe is past eternally infinite, did that which is eternal and the ground of all being reveal itself to you?
No.
Oh, okay. So now you've now contradicted yourself. You said the assertion that the universe is past eternal is not contradictory, but you've now contradicted your assertion.
I don't think so because I didn't do a black swan.
Dude. Wait. My head is about to explode. You tell me that you're 29, but you are literally reasoning with me like you're a teenager. I'm 63. Okay, I have a little bit more experience debating on this topic in education that you do. You just contradicted yourself. How would you know that something is eternal if that which is eternal is not intentional and reveals that it's eternal?
Yeah, I didn't say that I know that the universe is past eternal, and that's why I didn't commit a fallacy.
So then you asserted that the universe is past eternal irrationally? You asserted that God does not exist because my patience is running out with you. You asserted that God does not exist because the universe is past eternal. Did that which is eternal, is it characteristically intentional, and did it reveal itself to you?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay, guess right there. So you just shot yourself in the foot. Okay. So
can I try and elaborate why I didn't make a fallacy?
I'm trying to explain something to you. Why are you so effing obstinate? Are you such lacking in humility that you will not be corrected in an elementary mistake that you're making? You cannot make an assertion of that which is eternal unless that which is eternal was characteristically intentional and communicative. Now, is that which is eternal, does it possess the characteristic of being an intentional agent? And is that which is eternal communicative to you?
No, it is not an agent.
Then
no, it did
game
not
over.
communicate with me.
Game over. Now, then you forfeit the ability of saying anything is eternal. Are we
No,
clear?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. In fact, the universe was eternal.
Listen to me. Are you not getting this? Being argumentative doesn't work with me. You forfeit the ability to assert that something is eternal when you concede that that which is eternal is not characteristically communicative. How would you know that something is eternal unless it characteristically is intentional and can be communicative? How would you know that anything is eternal then?
Because I think that God can exist and be eternal and communicative.
No, it doesn't matter. Okay, so if you believe something, therefore that makes it true?
No, and that's exactly why I don't think I made a fallacy. I said
dude, I'm done with you. You are one of the most ill-informed but argumentative 29-year-olds I've ever spoken with. You're a deer in the headlights. I keep on correcting you on basic mistakes that you make over and over and over again, and you're like the Black Knight in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where he got both his arms and legs cut off, and he still thought he was in the fight. You are committing a performative contradiction when you say anything is eternal.
Yeah, but I'm saying that I have reason to believe that it's past eternal because
sir, it doesn't matter that you have reason to believe it. You have no rational basis. You have no rational basis to say that any. Okay, hey, dude, overtalk me again, and you are going to be gone. Okay, you tell me you're 29, but you're impulsively interrupting me when I'm educating you on your basic mistakes like a 16-year-old. I'm beginning to believe you're lying about your age. Now, you cannot assert with rational justification that something is eternal if that which is eternal isn't characteristically intentional and communicative that it's eternal. You now forfeit the ability to assert rationally that something is eternal. Okay? So, do you have any other line of reasoning that God doesn't exist? Because so far what you've given doesn't cut the mustard. You haven't given a rational defense that God doesn't exist. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, I would say that, like, if the universe is past eternal, it was not created.
There's no if here. Listen, there's no if here. I want you to give me an identity statement that functions as the negator for the identity statement of God. The only way to falsify God is through an identity statement that is the negation or negator of the identity statement of God. A cannot equal not A. So when you say that God does not exist, what is your rationally defensible identity statement that functions as the negator for God?
I would say that a creator can't be not a creator. And if the universe wasn't created, then it didn't have a creator.
Hold on a second. You're telling me you're 29.
That's right.
Do you realize what you said was colossally stupid?
No, I think what I said was the law of contradiction.
All right, okay, all right. I don't know whether he's just pulling my chain, okay, and he's just pretending to be stupid, or he's that stupid. Wow. Where do they grow these people? And people say I don't have patience.
Yeah, that was pretty painful.
20. You know what? If he didn't say that he was 29, I would have said, come back when you're a little bit older and old enough to shave. He literally was that incompetent. I'm not trying to be mean, but if you're going to come up here and tell me that you have solved the single most important question of human existence, and you contradict yourself left and right. There's no point in talking with you any further.
I missed it. Was he saying that the universe is eternal?
Yeah.
He stated several times. He stated, "Well, I believe that." Well, so what? I believe God exists. So does my belief in God rationally justify that God exists? Look, this is so typical of atheists. It's
Did he say that the universe had been communicating with him to tell him that it was eternal? Or maybe he's eternal as well.
Originally, he tried to foist the idea that the world in some way reveals itself to him, but I said you can't have revelation when something characteristically is not intentional. Okay? You know, it's just look, these people are just not competent. Welcome, Pharaoh. Do you accept God as your creator?
No.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
I don't know if there's a God or not, but if there is, I don't accept him. And
Okay.
in fact,
So you're pulling the incredulity. You're pulling the incredulity card, which most people pull. So I'm going to ask you a very simple question.
Okay.
Do you accept the necessity of God for everything?
No.
Okay. So your refusal to accept the necessity of God is what we call a functional or a de facto denial. So you have a contradiction on hand here. Although you're maintaining that you are suspending judgment about God's existence, you actually have made a judgment that God is not necessary. So you can stop pulling the incredulity card or saying you're unconvinced. You've decided that God is not necessary until shown otherwise, which means you're an atheist. So explain to me why there is no God.
I just told you I don't know if there's a God or not, but if there is,
did you hold on a second? No, I'm going to stop you right here because you're ignoring what. Okay, goodbye. Have a nice day. We have another doofus. Okay. So, in other words, I offer him a very clear and methodical refutation of his claim to neutrality. I do a very clear walkthrough that a ninth grader could understand. And then he completely ignores everything I say, doesn't give a rebuttal to what I'm saying, and then he just repeats the same crap sandwich all over again. Okay, so if you're going to ignore what I say, don't give a rebuttal, and then repeat the same crap sandwich, you're off the stage. Okay, because then there's no point in talking to you. Why should I waste my time if you're just going to blatantly ignore what I say and not offer a rebuttal? The fact of the matter is, he refuses to accept the necessity of God, which means he's speaking states of affairs about the world as though they are independent of God until shown otherwise. Well, that's denying God. You see, because they can't actually rationally falsify God, they have to play the incredulity card. Oh, I'm just unconvinced. I just don't know. Right? But you know there's not a God who has made himself clear, right? You know that God doesn't exist, right? Right? You know that a God who clearly reveals himself doesn't exist from your perspective, but then you just say, oh, I don't know if there's a God who hasn't revealed himself. So you're not really neutral the way you claim you are. Welcome, Jib. What would you like to say?
Welcome. Good morning, everyone. Oh, yeah, I'm atheist, and I don't believe that God can exist.
Good. How did you determine that God doesn't exist?
Well, I determine it by epistemologically.
I want to hear the nuts and bolts instead of just nomenclature and vocabulary. Tell me why there's no God.
Oh, because we interact with all the things that exist, right? And we determine the character.
No, that's simply not true. That is beyond an outrageous statement. You interact with everything that exists.
Yeah, the air.
Okay, goodbye. You're done. When you're this low information, possibly a Kamala Harris supporter, you're off the stage. He interacts with everything that exists. Did you know that?
Yeah, he's interacted with the dirt on the planet Pluto before. But even if we granted that was true, that somehow he was able to fly around and interact with things all over the universe, how would that follow that God doesn't exist? What does that matter?
Exactly. It doesn't follow. See, for those of you in the audience who are new to me and my disposition, once somebody shows for me that they're just colossally uninformed, they're very opinionated and they're uninformed, and they make totally stupid statements, and then I point out how incompetent these statements are, and they deny it. There's no point in talking with them any further. They're not getting booted because they're disagreeing. It's because they're not competent to discuss the issue. Okay, a seventh grader or an eighth grader isn't competent to go into a graduate school level and discuss graduate level chemistry. It just gets very frustrating because no, you're not coming up here again, Jib. Right? Look, these people I didn't bring you up. You're not coming up. Goodbye.
No, why?
All right. This is not romper room. This is not daycare where we're going to hold your hand. Once you show complete opposition or just ignoring where you have been clearly corrected on elementary mistakes and you ignore it and you're in a state of denial, there's no point in talking with you. Okay.
One thing you could possibly do to make it more clear to some of these people is when they say God doesn't exist because there's no evidence for him, you could point out that saying there's no evidence for God is a conclusion, that they need to explain how they reached that conclusion.
Exactly. Excellent point. Very, very well said. Look, they've been getting away with this for
reaching of that conclusion has rational grounds.
Yeah, they've been getting away with this for decades. They cannot defend the statement, there is no evidence for God. It's an indefensible claim. Now, if there's some atheist or agnostic who would like to come up and defend that there's no evidence for God, come on up. I'd love to hear your defense.
This point's making an interesting. This paper's making an interesting point about the idea that what belief in God requires good evidence or good argument. He's saying in this paper that not always work like that. That a lot of times, like when you believe there's a tree, you don't believe the tree because of like an argument. You believe the tree because you just like see it. It's obvious. So this rule that we need like an argument to have a reasonable position, he's saying is like too strict for real life. Because we wouldn't say that like necessarily God's revelation wouldn't be like an argument. It'd be like true in virtue that it comes from God. It's not like true in virtue of logic but then we can prove that the revelation's true with a logical argument, the transcendental argument. Am I getting this wrong, or am I sounding?
No, you're good.
I'm trying to think through what this paper's saying. He's saying debates are different from everyday beliefs.
Yeah, they're constantly bringing down the idea of God versus not God to just like you're arguing that there's crackers in the pantry. And it's a fallacy.
Whoever in the chat there tried to say that saying there's no evidence for God is an observation, not a conclusion. That's just a distinction without a difference. It doesn't get you out of having to explain how you arrived at that rational.
Observations are conclusions. Okay. Yeah. So if I observe it's sunny out, I'm making the conclusion that it's sunny out.
That would be like direct experience. It wouldn't be like you.
We're dealing with a lot of people that have no business debating the subject. They're not educated. They're incompetent. You know, they literally reason like junior high school students.
Notice how the person phrased it is they're trying to escape having to give a justification for the assertion that there's no evidence for God. They're trying to make it in some way default to be true, right? Rather than actually defending it.
They're framing the debate in a way that is an inaccurate representation of both of our positions. Okay? They're not transparently representing the true nature of their position. So this is why they will start off denying God, but then when they fail to rationally show that God doesn't exist. Yeah. So when they fail to demonstrate God doesn't exist, they instantaneously pivot and they go, "Oh, I'm just unconvinced." So in other words, you smuggle in your God you smuggle in your God denialism, and then when your God denialism doesn't work, you just rebrand your God denialism as a mental state wherein you're unconvinced.
I was going to say, because we as Christians have the opposite observation. We observe that everything is evidence for God. And you're going to demand that we defend that. You need to defend your position too.
Yeah, so the very fact that we're observing what we consider to be actuality with a certain measure of intelligibility would necessarily be indicative that it's the product of ultimate design and intentionality. If that is rejected, that this is a necessary corollary, right? That the so-called things that we observe aren't indicative and emblematic of ultimate design and intentionality, then the person is conceding that the world in question, either at a small or a grander scale, has no ultimate context. And if you have no context, you can't talk about actuality. You can't talk about meaning or intelligibility. So because there is actuality and certain semblance of intelligibility, then they have to be emblematic that they are the result of ultimate design and intentionality. Because facts not ultimately framed or encompassed by ultimate design and intentionality would not be facts at all. In other words, there would be no final or foundational reason why anything is. And if there's no ultimate frame of reference, you can't talk about facts. So because there are facts, they would have to indicate God. Because were they not to indicate God, you couldn't have facts. Because if you don't accept what I just said, you're going to have to explain how you can ground facts without final context.
We can
and they know that this is an insurmountable problem, and they don't want to concede to what is obvious here. But being that they have the mentality of teenagers, they try to bicker their way out of it to stagnate the stalemate.
We could take any fact and show that God's necessary for that fact.
Yeah,
so there's going to be like a billion arguments for God, because we could
every fact is indicative of God, of ultimate design and intelligibility. Because were it not, there would be facts. And if you disagree, you're going to have to explain how you can have facts when your world is shrouded or surrounded in ultimate mystery. It's that simple. You see, the problem with unbelievers is they're so habituated to thinking sinfully. And by that, I mean thinking that they can think autonomously about their world, that they can discern the actuality, meaning, and intelligibility of the world without acknowledging their creator as final context, which is what the Bible says is sinful. They're so habituated to this that they're just not aware that they're doing it. Okay?
Right. They're constantly operating like they're independent of God, but that's a position that's based on complete blind faith. They would have no defense for that.
Yeah. Welcome, Juan. Do you accept God as your creator?
No, I don't.
Do you have a justification that God does not exist?
Yeah, because there is no argument needed to have the logical principles.
Hold on a second. Were you listening to me?
Yes, I am.
I gave an argument as to how the actuality and intelligibility of the world require that they be the product of ultimate design and intelligibility. I gave an argument. So obviously you don't accept my argument. Is that correct?
No, I don't, because we don't need
any
logical principle.
Do you have a rebuttal to what I said?
Yeah.
What's your rebuttal?
That logical principles not need any argument.
You're just restating.
That's just an assertion of the negation.
Logical principles don't need an argument, so you're asserting logical principles without reason? You're asserting logical principles without logic? Is that correct?
Can I speak?
I asked you a question. Are you asserting that there are logical principles without using logic?
Can I speak or not?
Okay, if you don't answer the question, I'm going to kick you. Are you asserting there are logical principles without employing logic?
No, I'm not saying that.
Oh, okay. So are you asserting that there is logic by virtue of some argument?
If I can speak, I can explain you.
Okay, all right. Listen, I'm done with you. Okay, I'm not going to have somebody going, "Can I speak? Can I speak?" When I'm directly asking them a question, and then when I stop talking, they go, "Can I speak? Can I speak?" And they go, "Can I speak? Can I speak?" You see, one of the problems that we're dealing with is not just intellectual opposition. We're dealing with people that are incompetent to have this metaphysical discussion. They're not competent. When we give them a cogent line of reasoning, okay, and they don't agree, rarely are they going to even attempt a rebuttal. What they usually do is they ignore what you say, and then they just start going yada, 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 yada.
Yeah, they just assert the opposite without ever giving a rebuttal of the argument you presented.
How many times did I ask him, do you have a rebuttal? Their rebuttal is simply to ignore what has been said and then restate the same proposition in slightly different words.
It's literally the Monty Python sketch where the guy pays for an argument, and then all the guy does is just say the opposite. He just asserts the opposite of whatever the guy says, and he's like,
By the way, don't bring up any of those Three Stooges.
In the middle of this, he's like, "Hey, wait a minute! This isn't an argument. An argument is an intellectual process, and you're just like basically bickering with me here." And the guy goes, "No, I'm not," and he goes, "No, I'm not."
Yeah, I know. That's a great skit. That's a great one. You know what is more frustrating than a devious and deceptive atheist are these people who come up here who are literally not competent to discuss the issue. They barely have a junior high school level understanding of metaphysics. You know, and they expect me to be as patient as the day is long. I'll be patient with somebody who lacks understanding, but when it's clear they're just being obstinate, when they're just being evasive, mixed in with the fact that they're not competent and they're stiff-necked and they're unwilling to acknowledge anything that we say, in other words, nothing we say it has substance to them, and they don't offer a cogent rebuttal, then there's no point in talking with these people.
I mean, this is it's pretty simple. Like, science doesn't make metaphysical claims, and philosophers will admit that they just speculate about metaphysics. So, where do you get your metaphysics?
Lil Tech, do you accept God as your creator?
Oh, my bad, guys. I've been up here already.
Okay. All right.
Right, that's what Kant is, Immanuel Kant's basically saying with his phenomenal noumenal divide, which is also like a contradiction. But ignoring that,
Well, how would he know about the phenomenal noumenal divide if it were true? He couldn't know about the phenomenal noumenal divide if it were true.
That's what I'm saying. Ignoring that, he's contradicting himself. But like, he's basically saying with the phenomenal noumenal is that we can't really say anything about metaphysics, that we just like can talk about how we perceive the world, not how the world actually is, in like an alternate context.
Kant was brilliant, but also foolish. J and C, welcome. Do you accept God as your creator?
I used to, yes. I don't anymore.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
Well, no one, not me, not anybody, can prove the existence or non-existence. You can't.
Can you prove that statement?
Well, like for instance, I would say you cannot disprove a negative.
Sir, is English your first language?
Yes, sir.
Good. Did you hear my English? I said, can you prove your statement that nobody can prove the existence or non-existence of God? Can you prove that?
Well, no, you cannot. That's what I'm saying. You cannot prove.
You just contradicted yourself then. So then when you asserting that you can't prove it, then you're saying you can't prove that assertion. Therefore, your assertion is arbitrary and irrational.
Well, I would say, like for instance, I cannot disprove the existence of fairies or leprechauns.
Of course we can. Of course we can disprove them.
And how can you disprove that?
Are there any rational adults who believe in fairies or leprechauns?
Absolutely. Have you seen Comic-Con?
No. Okay, dude, how old are you?
I'm 42.
Okay, there are no rational adults who believe in fairies and leprechauns. Okay, they don't exist. We have good reasons to believe they don't exist. If somebody is an adult, okay, good. Then you've now been corrected. So hey, dude, it always ceases to amaze me. Are you even self-aware at your lack of understanding on this issue? When you say you cannot prove the existence or non-existence of a God, I said, can you prove that? Now, either you can prove that we can't prove the existence or non-existence of God, or you can't prove it. Can you prove that?
Just want to make sure I'm
Sir, I'm going to ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Can a properly formulated transcendental argument for something prove its existence?
I would have to say no.
Okay. Do you even know what a transcendental argument is?
I would have to say I don't believe I have.
No. Okay, so a transcendental argument.
Rude about it. I'm just
a transcendental argument. A transcendental argument is that we show that the thing in question we're attempting to establish is a necessary precondition of another fact that is accepted to be true, and without which the second fact couldn't be true. So a transcendental argument that is properly formulated can prove things. So are we clear about the nature of a transcendental argument?
I believe so, yes.
Because if we're not, I'll go, okay. Now, so can a transcendental argument that is formulated properly prove God's existence?
I'd like to hear your example of it, yes.
That's not an answer to my question. Can a transcendental argument for God potentially prove God's existence?
I'll give you the caveat. Yes, let's just potentially say that
Good.
is.
So, no, sir, I don't want you to give me a caveat. Can a transcendental argument for God, if properly formulated, potentially prove God's existence?
May I make one small statement before
And I'll make a statement
small.
I'll make a statement that you're gone. Okay, goodbye. Okay, so they will not stop with this stall, dodge, and delay tactics. Okay? So you see the little game that they play? They're constantly playing dodgeball, right? Rather than, I mean, these adults are like little 14-year-olds at the cafeteria table. Just ignore what your opponent is saying and pretend like you're really responding when you're really not. You know, don't come up here and say that you want to debate and be conversive, and yet you're completely ignoring what is being presented to you. Rami, welcome. Do you accept God as your creator? While we're waiting for Rami, notice again the guy said, you can't prove God's existence or non-existence. And I said, can you prove that? No, you can't. And then when I raised the issue, let me just finish before I have a Joe Biden moment. Then when I raised the issue about can transcendental arguments prove things? And he said, yes. So why couldn't a properly formulated transcendental argument for God, why couldn't it prove God's existence? So transcendental arguments can prove other things, but they can't, under any circumstances, prove the existence of God? How did you come to... You see, this is how uneducated and incompetent these people are.
Well,
Rami, are you there?
I noticed... Well, I just wanted to point out that you asked him for a rational justification for his position as to why God does not exist. And then he says nobody can prove it. Well, we can put aside his claim that as to whether other people can prove that God exists, but at least we can accept that it pertains to himself. So that means he doesn't have rational grounds for his atheism, for his assertion that God does not exist by his own admission. So his assertion's irrational.
Yeah, and how did he determine that nobody can rationally ground the existence or non-existence of God? How did he figure that out?
He would be correct if there wasn't for revelation, I guess.
Well, the point is, when he says nobody can prove the existence or non-existence of God, what is contained within that declaration is what you just said. He's adopting that he's in a non-revelatory environment. Okay? So inherently, when he says you cannot prove or disprove God, is the implicit declaration that we are all in a non-revelatory environment from God. So can he prove that the world is not and cannot be indicative of God or revelatory?
Well, he's already said he can't.
Okay.
He's already admitted he can't.
Well, it's actually to sit there and say that you cannot prove the existence or non-existence of God upon a careful examination is literally a performative contradiction, because when we walk through it, it contradicts itself. Right? It's a contradiction in terms, because now what you're saying is, well, we're in a non-revelatory environment. Well, how do you establish that? Okay. How do you establish that the world is not indicative of God? What's your basis for saying that? So the world is not emblematic of what actualizes it?
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So if
no, you got to say it with the right accent. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. By the way, I always love the debate between William Lane Craig and Walpart. You ever see that? Well, Walpart says that he tries to foist that there's a cosmic computer.
I don't watch much William Lane Craig debates.
I think they're informative to watch. You can learn a lot from it, even though you might disagree with his classical or evidential approach. It's just informative to watch it. Okay.
Is it the one where William Lane Craig points out that he's just stripping all the attributes off of what a computer is and applying God's attributes to the mouth sound computer?
Yeah, that's that's it. The guy, his name is Walpart. He did just a total pompous ass. And William Lane Craig, look, even though we may disagree with William Lane Craig in terms of his disparagement of biblical presuppositionalism and his line of reasoning where he reasons that God probably exists or is the best explanation, it's still informative to listen to him thinking because he is highly educated and informed. Okay, it's worth listening to as long as you don't get sucked up into his
presuppositionalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's not what I was saying.
Well, that's what he has.
You're not making
Divine
yourself
command
clear.
theory.
You're not making
William
yourself
Lane Craig
clear.
is not a presuppositionalist.
Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about.
He is. He presupposes that God is the objective moral standard.
Bear, listen to me. You are uneducated.
Why are you
on the
yelling,
matter.
you
don't
mad
know-
old man? Are we going to talk or are you going to bitch?
Okay, you're done. Okay, so here we have another arrogant, ignorant person. William Lane Craig is outspoken against biblical presuppositionalism. He has criticized biblical presuppositionalism several times publicly on his own YouTube or podcast. He also wrote a section in the book 5 Views on Apologetics where he critiques and criticizes presuppositionalism.
Darth, I think we just found Jail Warren's fan.
Can I make the point that the last person said that?
I think you're right. He graduated magna cum laude from the J.L. Warren School of Anti-Apologetics.
Can I make the point that the guy here, lest anyone in the audience be confused, he said that William Lane Craig presupposes God's existence, but that's not what presuppositionalism is. Presuppositionalism is a certain argument type for God, not merely whether the person presupposes God's existence or not. So he's trying to conflate two things, an argument style with a mental state.
Again, these people are utterly incompetent. They are attacking a straw man. Presuppositionalism is not what they think it is, okay? Presuppositionalism has to do with the debate is between a clash of worldviews and what it is that will be your ontological grounding within your model of reality. That ontological grounding within your model of reality is what Van Til refers to as your presupposition. Now, how you arrive and conclude at that ontological grounding is not simply the matter of a presupposition without some rational warrant or justification. So I can't tell you how annoying it is that people come up here and they're actually attacking a complete misrepresentation of biblical presuppositionalism because their knowledge of biblical presuppositionalism is only that they think presuppositionalism just simply means, oh, I presuppose God and that's my argument. I mean, this is how incompetent these people are.
I've noticed that low information people have like an unhealthy obsession or like addiction to like confusing two different words, like conflating words.
Yeah, they do. They have a problem bastardizing language. Yeah, they do it on purpose. Welcome, Doug Warner. What would you like to say?
An argument.
Doug, are you there? Earth to Doug. Are you Doug, Justin from the Deconstruction Zone? God? Doug the Rock?
Oh, Pikachu was here earlier. Who's adding people?
Yeah, I removed him.
That should be better.
Sila, are you adding people?
Look, I want some intelligent opposition, right? These people come up here and they're just not competent to have the debate. You can't prove whether God exists or not. Oh, that's so profound.
Darth, I just wanted to know, as you know, in Romans 1, Paul says they know God, but they suppress the truth and our righteousness.
Yep.
What do atheists, what's the atheists' like basic fundamental understanding of God that they're held accountable for that? Thank you.
Their basic understanding is that the apprehension of their own self-consciousness and the world around them, individually and collectively, is emblematic and indicative of ultimate design and intentionality. Meaning the world clearly is indicative of God, right? Because the rejection or the opposite of that means that the world has no frame of reference. And if the world has no frame of reference, there's no world to speak of. Okay? So in other words, in order to speak intelligibly about things, you're going to have to be invoking notions of unity and diversity. So if you're going to speak of a world without reference to God, how is that world intelligible? What is it that actualizes unity at any scale for you to speak intelligibly about that world? Since you reject that it is the mind, purpose, and plan of God that imposes the unity and diversity of this world at any scale according to his plan, then they believe that something else is actualizing the various states of unity and diversity in the world. Okay, what's the something else that actualizes that? And you see, there's no answer for them. They can't have one. It's an impossible task. Therefore, when they take the position that something else is the origin, something else is the causally imposing unity, right? They're violating their own criterion of belief when they say there is an evidence for God, therefore I dismiss God. Well, what's your evidence that something else causally imposes the various unified levels that are in the world in order to speak intelligibly about your world? Well, the answer is nothing. So their position is literally a performative contradiction, at least, but not limited to, a violation of their own criterion. Dr. Quantum, stop sending an invite. You're a turd. Pikachu, please stop sending an invite, okay? If you send an invite when we told you not to send one, you're going to get blocked. Welcome, Rami. Do you accept God as your creator?
I'm an atheist.
Okay, goodbye, Rami. Yeah, okay. See, once again, atheists run amok on TikTok, but they don't show up here, at least the intelligent ones. What does that tell you, my audience? Okay. No, Quantum, I haven't met anyone who's come up on stage who I would say was smarter than I am, let alone as smart as I am. Okay. They may be smarter about things in life that I'm not as smart as, but when it comes to this issue, I haven't met somebody who has an equivalent understanding of metaphysics. Okay. And number two, you're a train wreck, Dr. Quantum. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with you where you were an absolute mitigated disaster when you claim to have a PhD in physics, when you make multiple basic mistakes when it comes to somebody who claims to have the highest degree in physics possible. Welcome, Timeless. Do you accept God as your creator?
Which God?
Okay, that's a bait and switch. If you dodge one more time, I'm going to kick you. Do you
No,
accept
it's
God
a
as your
legit
goodbye,
question. Not every God is
goodbye,
the same. Not every
goodbye,
God is the same.
goodbye, goodbye? You see, this is all they've got. They're little teenage diversionary spread. Which God? If I ask you, is there ice cream in the bowl, and you go, what flavor? Oh, that's so clever. Okay. When you say which God, you're just playing a diversionary tactic. You don't want to be transparent about your position.
Well, it also, we actually can already discern the answer from that question, and that is that they don't accept any God, because if they did, they would just say who their God is.
Yeah. Oh, so in other words, so you do believe in one among many gods? Which God is that? Yeah. You know, it never ceases to amaze me, not just the ideological incompetence of people who come up on stage, but the immaturity that is displayed. I mean, the level of immaturity that is displayed is staggering. Welcome, Leo. Do you accept God as your creator?
No.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
Yeah, since God is defined as a necessary being, and it's logically possible God does not exist, as a result, God would not exist, since
it's logically possible. So you're saying that logic can exist in a world without God?
Yeah, that's logically possible as well.
Okay, so can you tell me, is logic correct thinking about the world?
To clarify, if I were to say that God is logically
Sir,
possible,
listen to
you're
me.
dodging right now. Where's the contradiction entailed?
Okay, stop or I'm
Why
going
are
to
you
kick
dodging
you.
me?
Stop or I'm going to
Stop
kick.
dodging.
Okay, goodbye. You see, they cannot help themselves. The level of grotesque immaturity is it is beyond belief, right? But then again, this is TikTok, okay? Welcome, atheist Q-Top. Do you accept God as your creator?
No.
Can you tell me why God does not exist? And if you dodge any of my questions, I'm going to kick you without further warning.
Yeah, God doesn't exist because God's existence is a contradiction.
Okay. God's existence is a contradiction to what identity state?
To the identity state of abstract objects.
Okay, abstract objects are not concrete identity states. In order to falsify God as a concrete identity state, you're going to have to present a concrete identity state that functions as the negation for God. What you just said was colossally stupid. So what is your concrete identity state that will negate the existence of God?
Wait, you didn't give an objection to what I
Sir,
just said.
listen.
Why can't an abstract object?
You're being a sophist right now, and I don't want to have to kick you, but I will kick you without further notice if you resort to immaturity. Now, you said God entails a logical contradiction. So A cannot equal or coexist with not A. So what is the concrete identity state that is identifiable, defensible, that negates the existence of God? If you dodge the question, I'm going to kick you.
I said abstract objects, but you didn't.
Goodbye. You're repeating what you said before.
So you're running.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is sad. I wish we could have a maturity test that people who have an IQ of a 14-year-old couldn't get on stage. So what does he do? He repeats the same stupid claptrap that he did before. Okay, abstract objects, okay, are not concrete identity states. Okay. The funny thing is they don't even believe the bullshit that comes out of their mouth.
Of course not. Oh, my mic's unmuted. Yeah, they don't. There's just they'll just say anything. Like they do this in science too.
Look. When we talk with theists, generally speaking, not Muslims not included, they don't typically resort to just pathologically lying and obfuscating. Okay, we might have a rough and tumble dispute or debate on a certain topic within the domain of theism, but they're not just constantly resorting to lying.
That's not true because the Muslims do.
I already mentioned. I said Muslims notwithstanding.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I made the qualification. Yeah, you're not coming up again, atheist Q-Top. Once you clearly show us that you're committed to. Oh, okay. Well, that's just okay. Yeah.
Q-Top. That's actually Q-Top, where he has this account and he calls himself Atheist Q-Top, and he tries to debate atheism. So
that was Q-Top?
Yeah.
Did it sound like him to you?
Yeah, he's trying to disguise his voice though.
So he was now arguing for atheism?
Yeah, it's like, I guess, a troll account. It's a joke account or something. I don't know. Who knows what that... I mean, the guy's a flat earther, right? I mean...
Okay. First of all, anybody who's a flat earther is a liar. And if they're not a liar, they're crazy. Okay? Flat earthers are a perverted bunch because they're just trying to pull people's chains. They just... they have this perverted sense of enjoyment about just debating something they really don't believe. So I decided several years ago not to engage them at all anymore.
Yeah, I think that Pikachu guy who kept asking you about the firmament, I think he sounded like a flat earther to me.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why the modern translations translated expanse.
Yeah, they can't... It's just talking about, like, the ancient Hebrew cosmogony, but it's not the same as, like... Because they didn't have science the way we have science. They don't... It's a stretch to say that these ancient cosmogony were teaching flat Earth.
Look, they understood the spherical nature of the Earth, even simply from looking at ocean-going vessels, the way that they would disappear over the horizon. Okay? So, this idea that the flat Earth was widely believed in the past it's just historically false.
But, I mean, the Bible's not like a scientific book. It's so the firmament would be a part of, like, the Hebrew cosmogony. So it's just like God talking to people in terms that they're going to understand in their culture.
Well, first of all, the firmament is not clearly defined. It's a very generalized term. That's why the modern translations translated expanse.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has to do. Yeah. Well, I would agree with that.
Atheist Q-Top. And Dr. Quantum, do not send up another invite or you're going to get your accounts blocked. Okay, yeah. Hey, Q-Top fan, you're okay. We're going to block this account now. All right, let's block him. Block. Yeah, as soon as I became aware that Q-Top was a flat earther, I blocked his account. Are there not any intelligent, mature-minded unbelievers that we can talk to instead of this never-ending parade of incompetence?
And then as soon as you do that, he stabs you in the... Or, I don't know if I could say that, but he, betrays you like Judas or something, where he like goes and throws you under the bus. And
yeah, exactly. Dr. Quantum, stop or you're going to be permanently muted on site, okay? You're a fake, a phony, and a fraud. You've made so many stupid statements that somebody with a PhD in physics would not make. Okay, so stop, or I'm gonna mute you on site from here on out. You know what? I'm just gonna do it for the fun of it anyway. Now he's muted. Okay, hey Rami, send another invite request, and the host is going to block you from his stream. Okay, stop sending an invite request, Rami. Jib, you don't know what you're talking about when metaphysics. When you say God is not needed for logical principles are a reflection of correct thinking about the world. So you're saying is God doesn't need to be the necessary precondition of what instantiates the fundamental parameters of the world from which we derive logic from. So you'd have to show that God does not exist, but you can't do that. Look, you see, you know what the problem is? Not only are these people stupid, they're just unwilling to learn from somebody who knows more than they do.
Yeah, they always want to like come up here and educate us, but if I want to learn, I'll read a book.
Actually, Just Speak, I happen to go on quite a few other streams on TikTok without mods. I do it all the time, so you don't know what you're talking about. It's just that I don't have persistent tolerance and patience for people who are literally stupid on this topic. I'm not indicting them as stupid because I merely disagree. They're literally showing their own incompetence about these topics, and yet when they're corrected by me and I walk them through and I educate them how they're making basic mistakes, they absolutely refuse to acknowledge they've made basic mistakes. Welcome, Jeff.
How's
Do
it
you
going?
accept God as your creator? Do you accept God as your creator?
No.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
Well, first of all, you bear the burden of proof.
Jeff, stop with the atheist slogans or I'm going to kick you.
Oh my
I
God.
asked, okay, saying there's a shifting of a burden of proof is an atheist canard. And here's why.
That says God exists.
Jeff, do you want me?
It says it on the thing.
Jeff, do you want me to kick you?
I don't care.
I'm going to explain to you what you're just repeating is an atheist cliche and a canard. Okay.
Read what the background says.
Okay, Jeff, listen very carefully.
Read the background.
Okay.
God exists. Read it.
Jeff,
Prove
do you want to have it? Jeff, if you interrupt me while I'm speaking one more time, I'm going to kick you. Why is it that almost every atheist that we interact with, regardless of chronological age, acts like an imbecile 14-year-old? Do you have self-control with your mouth where you don't interrupt?
May I speak,
Jeff?
now?
Do you have impulse control, Jeff?
May I speak or no?
Jeff, do you have impulse control?
No, I'm just fine. I'm asking you a simple question.
Okay, Jeff, last chance. Do you have impulse control?
No.
Goodbye, Jeff. Okay. You see, this is what is so pervasive about the majority of atheists. They are so effing immature. This is pervasive, and it doesn't matter what their age is. They almost all of them, with rare exceptions, exemplify this gross immaturity. When you come in and say, you're shifting the burden of proof, how am I shifting the burden of proof when I'm asking you to explain your viewpoint? Saying there's a shifting of the burden of proof means that I'm making an assertion without a putative justification. Welcome. Do you accept God as your creator?
Oh, hang on, let me turn the volume up.
Do you accept God as your creator?
Which God?
Okay, sir, you're about to be kicked for dodging right out of the gate. So do you believe in a God?
No,
Any
I
God?
believe the.
All right.
Would you let me?
Mark. You
You
better
asked me a
respect my.
question. Do you
Okay,
want me to answer in monosyllables?
goodbye, Mark. It is These people are unbelievable. Unbelievable.
So that means that no matter which God you were talking about, he'd have to say, no, he doesn't accept God as his creator. So that just displays how his first response was a dodge.
Okay. Jeff, I'm gonna give you one more chance, but if you disrespect my moderation, if you become evasive, I'm going to kick you without further notice. Are we clear?
Yeah, you're the boss. Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
now, good. Now, if you want to speak at length without interruption and you request that, I will grant it. If I interrupt you, I interrupt with cause. Okay? Now,
But can I interrupt with cause or no?
if you have cause, but I've rarely encountered an atheist who has cause.
Okay.
Now, Jeff, so I take it that you deny the existence of God. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So minutes from now, I'm going to kick you if you shapeshift to saying, "Oh, I'm just unconvinced." Okay. So your position is God does not exist. Is that correct?
Am I allowed to have my own opinion on?
Good. Goodbye, Jeff. Goodbye, Jeff. Okay. They just will not cooperate in the least. They're just so accustomed to being argumentative, right? And evasive and deceptive. It's so ingrained in their thinking. Right out of the gate, he says, "You're shifting the burden of proof." No, asking you to explain your position is not shifting the burden of proof.
They're desperate to protect their position from being examined.
Yo.
RJ, do you accept God as your creator?
I do not.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
Sure. So, to me, in my perspective, I think that the Bible is merely an interpretation
We're not,
of what could be.
sir, stop.
What'd I do?
We're not discussing the Bible. What we're discussing is your
Well,
position that if you interrupt me, I'm going to kick you. Now, what we are discussing at this particular moment is why there's no creator. You're not going to shapeshift to criticizing the Bible. Your mission is to explain why there is no creator. Go.
I have a question.
I'm listening.
All right. So, why can't I bring up the Bible when I am not criticizing, I guess, or disproving that God exists?
We're not discussing that.
But
It is a dodge.
I have another question.
Hey, RJ. I'm getting impatient because I have to deal with one atheist after another that obfuscates, that prevaricates, that rabbit trails and dodges.
If you
Goodbye.
are,
Goodbye.
yeah, exactly. You're a pussy.
Goodbye, slob. Okay. Yeah, I don't put up with teenage antics. If you come up here and you present yourself like an adult, we can disagree at length. If you're going to act like a stupid, evasive, deceptive teenager, look, you people are a dime a dozen. I'm not dealing with that. I'm not going to have you waste my time. Space Age, welcome. Do you accept God as your creator?
No, I don't.
Can you tell me why there's no God?
No, I can't. But I do want to ask you, man. When are you gonna debate Ian again, man? Hey, man. When are you gonna debate Ian, man? Your debates are fun, man.
Okay. Yeah, when Ian leaves your mother's bedroom. Okay, goodbye.
Oh.
What a moron.
Didn't you already debate Ian? What is he talking about?
Yeah, so these people trolls are a dime a dozen. Ian conducted himself on 3 or 4 occasions like a complete fool. Okay, Ian demonstrated that he literally does not have his own confidence in his ability to intellectually and maturely interact with me. So because he knows that I would mop the floor with him, Ian just decided to act like a complete troll when he comes on to my streams, right? Ian tries to pretend that he's cerebral, but he's really not. It's all shtick on his stream. If Ian could maturely and intelligently defend atheism, he would have done so with me, but he couldn't. Unbreakable, welcome. Do you accept God as your creator?
I do.
What would you like to say?
I wanted to ask a question. Do you think it's possible or it makes sense if someone believes in God but doesn't necessarily believe in the Bible?
Yeah, there are people who believe in God but who reject the Christian worldview. It's not rational to do so, but there are people who do that.
Okay, why do you feel like it's not rational?
Okay, because the property set of the God of the Bible that God himself has revealed within the Bible is a God whose attributes are perfect in all respects. And that if you attempt to speak about the world in whole or in part without respect to God being the single perfect causal first principle whose mind, purpose, and plan creates and sustains this world as it is, then they're not going to have a identifiable, defensible ground of being to contextualize a intelligible world. Okay, so for God has to be perfect in all of his attributes compositely in order for us to be in a rationally accessible and intelligible world. If somebody doesn't accept that, they're going to have to explain what their ultimate frame of reference is as to why they can be rational and intelligible. So the God of the Bible's attribute set is exclusive and indispensable for actuality, truth, reason, and intelligibility. Do you believe that oxygen and water are exclusive and indispensable for remaining alive?
Yes.
So the God of the Bible's attributes, as he has revealed them through creation and propositionally codified in the Bible, where he reveals what his properties are, they too are exclusive and indispensable for all actuality, truth, reason, and intelligibility of even the simplest of matters. If somebody rejects that putative revelation, then instantaneously they're going to be operating from an alternative model of reality to ground what they're saying is intelligible. But there will be no identifiable, defensible model of reality.
That's interesting.
Okay. So in other words, God is the single causal first principle whose perfect attribute set provides for the actuality and intelligibility of all states of affairs. Now, an unbeliever will react in saying, that's just an assertion. Well, no, it's not just an assertion. It's a form of transcendental reasoning. In other words, the attribute set of God, who reveals himself in creation, mind you, we're not just merely surmising that God exists. We're operating off of the principle that the world is at any scale indicative and emblematic of ultimate design and intentionality by God's purpose. But the God who reveals himself is revealing indirectly and directly that he's perfect. Okay? So either we're going to be operating within the context of God being the single causal first principle who is perfect and whose mind controls what is and what cannot be, or not. if somebody operates from the not position, then they're operating from the principle that the world is encapsulated by what is ultimately imperfection. And if it's operating from imperfection, then how can they speak intelligibly about anything? How could they be right about anything if what is fundamental constitutes what is imperfection?
Okay, wait.
If what
Okay,
it,
so
look, so let me listen.
okay, so you feel as though God is perfect.
Yeah, Darth, we can't hear you, but yeah, we would say Darth. God is sorry, God. Yeah, God's perfect.
Mm. Okay, see, this is where I'm having a disconnect with that, because in the Bible, I mean, wouldn't you agree that God has made a mistake or two, or hasn't really like made the best judgment?
No, he can't make a mistake.
Okay, another question. Do you feel like all those stories in the Bible are true? Do you feel like some of them are exaggerated just a tiny bit?
They might use literary devices, but they're true.
Okay. What concrete evidence can you provide me that the Bible is literal and it's everything in it is true?
The transcendental argument for God, so that basically, if you deny, like in the Christian worldview, God determines what's true and not true, right? And so if you deny that God is that which determines what's true and not true, then it's going to be a human mind that determines what's true. And that will reduce to like absurdity, where you wouldn't be able to know anything. So because like basically if you reject God's revelation, it entails a performative contradiction, that God's revelation is undeniable. So
Oh, okay. All right. So yeah, just please forgive me and bear with me, because I'm trying to learn, and there's like a lot of things that I don't understand. But I do believe in God. The reason why I do believe in God is because I went on my own personal spiritual journey where I seeked God out and I developed a relationship with Him, and I sat and I talked to Him. And I feel like a lot of people paint God out to be like this evil being. You're just evil and cruel person. And I don't feel like he is, because of my own personal relationship with him and what he has revealed to me. He has been very compassionate with me, etc., etc. But at the same time, I'm still having a disconnect with the Bible. And I'm honestly just trying to make sense of it. So this is why I'm asking these questions.
Well, I'm not really the best person to that. Like, I'm not a Bible scholar. I just proved the Bible is true with an argument. So,
Okay, I don't really think that you proved that, though. I mean,
well, it doesn't matter what you think. Like, proof isn't based on like what people think or don't think, right?
So basically, you're just gonna believe the Bible because you feel like that's what God wrote in.
Yeah, in virtue of the fact that like God said it, it's going to be true.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate that.
Right,
You have a good day.
you too. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Let's see, Sela. Hey, Sela. Well, you were the only other mod.
Yeah, that's weird. I wasn't even on the TikTok app. Like I just had it open up in a window. So yeah, that's weird. Is Paraduper a mod?
No, he's not.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, I could imagine Darth letting people up, but you did kind of ask. But yeah, no, I stopped adding people up the day like I talked to you about it,
Okay.
and you told me that.
Well, yeah, maybe Darth accidentally added him. That could be it.
Okay. Because you told me like you only made me mod just in case you're like away.
Yeah, I remember I made you mod for that day. I don't know. It's all right. It's no problem.
All right.
It's probably Darth just adding people accidentally. Welcome, Just Speak.
Hey.
So do you accept God as your creator?
No.
And do you have a reason?
Because there's no evidence, but the reason I wanted to come up was to talk about Darth Dawkins.
Well,
if I can finish before you kick me.
Well, I don't understand.
I've seen him on many lives, and he has lost every single debate that he was not a moderator. And I was on here a couple days ago when you gave him moderator powers. He overtalks people.
He always had moderators. This is his live.
Well, then why did he ask you to give him moderator powers the other day?
This is his live. He's always had moderator powers.
Okay, well, that's not what I remember. But he uses that power to kick anybody who disagrees with him. He talks over people, and as soon as they give good arguments against his argument, he kicks them.
Yeah, this is ridiculous.
It's not that he says he's a great debater, but he's not.
Yeah, you're just
because debates, a real debate, like if you go to the traditional type of debate where two people are on stage and arguing about something, they don't get kicked. And that's what he does.
You're not even making art. No, he doesn't. You don't know what you're talking about, dude.
No, he does.
Are you gonna make an argument or just gonna cry, bitch, and moan?
Well, I mean, if that's who you want to have as a moderator, that's fine with me.
Your opinion, not really. I don't really care. Welcome, Scott.
SK. Yeah, SK.
Okay, welcome.
Hello. Hey. Yeah, how are you? So I am a believer. Yeah, I appreciate what you guys doing on internet and stuff. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, my bad. I got a low battery. I gotta plug in my phone.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Yeah, I know we all Christians disagree. I mean, that's the way to converse in adults. So I was wondering, for the Genesis part, what is your take? Genesis, how do you view Genesis?
Just be like a Bible literalist, I guess.
I mean, have you ever taken another perspective, like, for example, the Genesis was Genesis was written down put into writing during Babylonian times, right? So that might be some sort of debates with the existing culture. So because when Enuma Elish says the different gods created earth, no, the Genesis stating, no, this God created, the same one God created the earth and heavens. Can we see like that, that perspective?
What are you saying?
Oh, I was saying, can we, it's a literary device, can we see it as a metaphorical literary device used to debate Babylonian creation and stuff like that,
Yeah, I think it was like a polemic against
Right.
Babylonian cosmogony.
Yeah, I was taking a class from Hebrew University of Jerusalem. It's on EDX. So they are saying based on archaeological evidence, we used to think that Genesis is literal, but these are sometimes as a polemic. So have you ever considered about that?
I don't see, just because it's a polemic, does it mean it's false?
Yeah, no, I didn't say that polemic is false. No, I didn't say that. Oh, I didn't say that just because we have a metaphorical polemic, does that invalidate all the biblical narratives? I mean, I believe Abraham existed. I think Noah's flood, it's a local flood. I think it has its own things, but yeah. Have you ever, I think you guys say it is a young earth, is it? Earth is young.
I believe a young Earth, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I wish. Have you read Swinburne, Richard Swinburne?
I'm familiar with the name somewhat. Yeah.
Because I think he said that probability of Jesus as God is like 99%. So that is greater than the probability of electrons in hydrogen atom. So yeah, so that's the best I had in apologies.
It's 100%.
Huh?
I would say it's 100%.
Yeah. Philosophically, using man-made philosophical methods, I would say as a believer. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for coming, man.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Darth might have taken off. Well, we're not really getting a lot of non-believers right now anyway, so maybe I'll call it live. We've been going at this for like 5 hours now, so thanks for coming in. Thanks for hanging out, everyone.